Good evening, Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. It is time to review The Invisible Man, starring Elizabeth Moss. The movie is about a woman played by Elizabeth Moss who escapes her abusive ex, and then she is convinced through a series of events that she is being abused still by her ex in an invisible form. I thought that the trailer spoiled too much, and I was like, I didn't like that I saw this trailer because it spoils a lot about like the whole premise, but the movie went in directions that I was like surprised by. It gave me good twists and turns. This movie had a lot more goods to offer. I was like very pleased with this movie. Great reviews, but it still surpassed my expectations. And then you saw it tonight.
I saw it tonight.
You really...
Oh my, this film, I almost leaped right out of my chair. I was in a Dolby theater, so there was a lot of sound, and the screen was very big. Maybe even 3 times where I almost leapt out of my seat.
From sound?
No, from what was happening. The suspense in this film. My oh my. Putting myself in her shoes, just looking around for somebody who is invisible and could be right next to you. Whenever she was looking for the Invisible Man,
yep.
And then however he appeared was hey, it's right there. It's right next to me. It was a lot.
Ooh. It sounds like you had a 4DX experience where you were just getting sprayed with water. And
I may as well have been. I mean, I could definitely feel the fear through the screen. I mean, the movie I feel offered me scares and thrills that movies just rarely do. I would think of myself as a hard person to get to react because I'm sort of desensitized to scary movies, but the fear felt real. The idea of an invisible person that could be in the room with you is pretty terrifying, and it's an idea, and it's a concept that never lets up.
As we know, horror movies have a problem with how much they reveal the monster. This one's invisible, so even when it is attacking or it is there, it is still unseen. It's brilliant. You have your cake and eat it too. I agree that the scenes, even though he's invisible, they're very scary. I loved the opening scene. It is not yet a supernatural fear. It is only the fear of escaping this man. And that was just very real, but also terrifying.
I feel like the movie was really smart in that it started off with tension that was entirely part of our world or someone's real experience without getting you into the supernatural concept. And then it sort of slowly builds from the psychological into okay, what's happening here? This tension holds still throughout the film, and it's still true to that paranoia that she feels. This person will never leave me. They'll always be psychologically manipulating me.
Yeah, it's not just psychological, but it remains allegorically true.
Yeah,
all the tension, all the abuse that this invisible man is giving her is real abuse that can be given by an abusive husband.
She experienced it before he was invisible.
But I will say that I think that the movie can fluctuate between being a thriller where maybe, in some moments you're not thinking all about how it relates to whatever, and then in some moments you are, so it kind of fluctuates between those two in a way that I thought worked. I mean, there were some
it did really work.
Thriller scenes that were entertaining and engaging in the way that an action sequence is actually.
Yeah.
Particularly
there were action sequences.
The one take was very good.
Oh yeah.
The one take was very good.
This is the director of Upgrade, which I haven't seen, maybe shamefully so, but I know the genre of that film and how it plays with it does something innovative with camera work in the fight scenes, and this film has that, and it works really well. It definitely goes from being that traditional horror, someone walking around a house with a flashlight, to being a movie where it's oh my god, we have to get away, we have to and that's more thriller. So think of A Quiet Place, where that can go between horror and thriller, scary, and then just nail biting and please, this I need to get away from this situation, and at some points becoming even a little bit of an action movie. But throughout, the tension is the same, the fear is the same, and it lets you experience that fear in so many different ways. Also, the degree of how threatening the guy is, the massive amount of power that the invisibility lends him, and the way that you see him exercise that power eventually is it makes him such a good villain, and it really made me be like, I don't know how he can be stopped. Like, I don't know how you can stop an Invisible Man. The movie was distressing because of how threatening he was and how ever-present that threat was, like, that he could do so much harm so quickly, like, whenever he wants to. It caused me, like, distress watching the movie. I think that's what the movie was supposed to do, and it was also thrilling in a weird way.
The toll that being haunted by the Invisible Man has on the way that other people see her becomes also like important to the substance of like how the abuse works. And it also was interesting because I thought that once it started to play into that it would sort of ride that for a very long time, the rest of the movie maybe into like a whole like, you know, no one believes her thing. But it evolved and it became something new. The stakes for the character increased, and this movie's 2 hours long. It could have ended at the hour 30-minute mark, but it goes on and you have a sort of different type of climax happen. It roots it back in like the real fears. It doesn't get too caught up in it being like a totally physical thing that must be defeated.
Yeah. Like, inside of this movie, you can easily see where the mediocre movie is. The mediocre movie ends where you think that this movie ends. You could have taken this really cool and terrifying premise and just made a meh movie. But literally every scene and, like, every turn in the movie feels right and is exceptionally done. There's no scene that's, like, poorly made.
I mean, it was very well directed. Yeah. And, like, the scenes where she's fighting with the Invisible Man, and they're done without a lot of cuts, and you can actually see her like kind of like jerking around and fighting with this thing, and it's kind of impressive how they pulled it off.
Oh yeah, it's very impressive.
And it didn't feel like an indie horror either. It felt still like a blockbuster crowd pleaser kind of horror, like A Quiet Place, but one where you can still appreciate it for like the craft and how well made it is, while understanding that this is a movie that is meant to thrill and please. There were scenes where if this were like a $1 million budget movie, I could have seen how it would have been done differently. But I feel like I got the thrills of a blockbuster, you know, at the same time, and I didn't really lose much because of that. And I wanted this movie to fulfill me. I wanted it to be satisfying and like give me thrills and give me all of that. We can't go this review without commending the great Elizabeth Moss, because at every turn she is elevating the material by holding on so deeply to the pain and the performance. But also something that Elizabeth Moss is great at as an actress is there is a delight in watching her like go insane. She's great at it. And surely she hisses at somebody. So get ready for that. She is capable of communicating so much with her face. She's a great actress. This seems to be like her first big leading role in like in a movie, in a movie that makes a lot of money, I guess. And I mean, welcome to the big screen. Like, I've been waiting for her to come to the big screen for a while, and here she is, and it's spectacular. And I also want to say that Aldous Hodge was very good, who we saw in Clemency.
Yeah, he has a lot of potential. I feel like I could see him becoming a really big star.
Oscar like nominee someday, honestly. Like, I predict that at this point? Like, he was worthy in Clemency, to be honest. I will also note that the end, to not spoil anything, the last second actually felt like emotionally resonant in a way I didn't expect, and then it ends and it's perfect. This was very, very satisfying movie. It has shocking moments, genuinely like a moment where I was like, whoa, fuck. You have to see this. You have to see this movie. It is like part of the great horror movies. It's part of the horror renaissance, folks, that we're living in.
And if you have friends who like to cover their eyes at movies, like, definitely take them. But just also know, like, they will literally be covering their eyes the entire movie.
Well, they're not going to see anything if they open them.
That's exactly the point. Because not seeing is scarier than seeing.
A lesson we always learn in horror movies. This movie demonstrates, like, very obvious.
Yeah, in an obvious way, and then it also is very faithful to that premise. This was, in many ways, like, a perfect movie-going experience. And one that I would recommend to like anybody as long as you can take the thrills.
I don't even think it's necessarily like one of the scariest horror movies I've seen.
I would satisfying
and thrilling. It had scary moments, sure.
I would disagree with that.
Okay. I will give this a 9 out of 10.
I'm gonna just go with like a 10 on this one. I was like, that was fucking good. I was kind of on a high of how good the movie was. Looking at it as a horror movie and a thriller From the perspectives of just those genres and like fulfilling those promises, it's like a 10 on those levels.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you were invisible, who would you terrorize?